ZEISS just introduced the Nano Primes, an entirely new family of super fast cinema prime lenses specifically designed for mirrorless mounts. We took a first look. Quite a while ago, when DSLR filmmaking took over, ZEISS introduced the CP2 series, the first line of cinema lenses that was really targeted at DSLR filmmakers. I bought a full set and it has served me very well for many years, using it with all kinds of cameras, even when I switched from Canon to Sony many years ago. What's amazing is that you can adapt these lenses to all kinds of mounts, and you can do it yourself, which means almost endless versatility as well. They also cover full-frame camera sensors and did so from the get-go, which is not true with most higher-end cinema primes. The CP2s and also their successors, the CP3s, are amazing lenses in their own right. Yet, as always, there are some caveats. Many of the 10 different compact prime focal lengths are still based on older lens designs, mostly made for photography lenses, and they were not all designed at the same time, which means looking at the entire line of lenses, their look and the look they produce is not entirely consistent. Secondly, having the ability to adapt these lenses to older, long flange distance mounts like PL and EF, as well as modern mirrorless mounts like E-mount, means that for many focal lengths, a long tube has to be added to the mirrorless mount to get to the needed flange distance. Last but not least, this mount versatility also means that the lenses can't be super fast because of the light loss involved with the needed construction of such long mounts. ZEISS decided to tackle these three problems all at once by developing an entirely new line of cinema primes, and here they are, the ZEISS Nano Primes. What you can see immediately is their resemblance to the CP2 and CP3 line of lenses. When we received the Nano Primes, I didn't immediately realize that they are quite a bit smaller, but you can see this clearly when you place them next to a CP2 specifically. Now here's what's amazing. ZEISS launched 6 focal lengths of the Nano Primes at the same time. 18mm, 24, 35, which is on the camera filming me right now, 50mm, 75 and 100mm, and all of them have a very fast maximum aperture of t1.5. Now that's especially impressive for wider angle and telephoto lenses, and of course to have this consistency is extremely useful when working on sets. Having the ability to isolate subjects and objects even with a wide angle lens like an 18 or 24mm is very useful in everyday shooting scenarios, and I can't emphasize this enough. It's rare to get this on a cinema lens, but they've done it. But while we're at it, let's talk about the look. Of course, this is very subjective, but ZEISS is known to design optically perfect lenses, favoring sharpness and clarity. In the past, some of their lenses could be seen as a bit clinical in the look that they produced for that reason, especially when comparing them to some more dreamy or vintage looking lenses, for example. With their more recent Supreme Primes, which are targeted at high-end productions, ZEISS introduced a more creamy and warmer bokeh while not sacrificing any of the sharpness, and that became extremely successful in the high-end. They are doing really well, these Supremes. And when looking at some of the test footage that I shot with the new Nano Primes, I think they did a great job replicating that look with this less expensive range of lenses. They really look like they could be very complementary to the Supreme Primes in a lot of ways, or even be used instead of them in lower budget productions. I like the fact that for once we are not seeing another set of cinema lenses that deliver a vintage look like we've seen so many times over the last few years from various manufacturers. ZEISS is still about optical perfection, giving you an image that you can tweak in post if you need to, while now already delivering a very cinematic and soft bokeh that takes away the digital edge from many modern cinema cameras. let's take a look at the technical performance of the Nano Primes. We looked at sharpness, focus breathing and chromatic aberration as usual. You can find the details of our technical tests in my review article on CineD linked below, but let me just state here that the results are overall extremely impressive. Even at t1.5, all of the lenses are delivering a very sharp image, even in the edges. Focus breathing is very controlled, even with the 100mm lens, where it's the hardest to do. And it's very hard to find any weaknesses in any of these technical tests with the ZEISS Nano Primes. But if you force me to, it's probably the 24mm lens that features slightly inferior corner sharpness and a little more focus breathing compared to the other lenses in the set. Yet its performance is still very good. It's only when compared to the others that you can see a slight difference, which is of course completely negligible in everyday shooting scenarios. They're really great. The look the lenses produce both in the real life test as well as in the technical tests is proven to be very consistent now as well. You can tell that these 6 lenses were designed at the same time. Bokeh, out of focus highlights, sharpness, chromatic aberration behavior, you name it, they all look very much the same with all of these lenses. As Christophe Cazeneuve from ZEISS pointed out in our interview, ZEISS had also access to much more modern, fully digitized design processes now, which allows them to fully design lenses and the whole range of lenses on the computer before they put them into reality. The full, very insightful interview with him is linked below in case you want to know more about the work that went on behind the scenes to create these lenses. The close focusing distance of all of these lenses is very good. They're definitely not macro lenses, but close focus is better than what you would expect with most of the focal lengths. In the compact prime lineup, ZEISS added macro versions of the 50 and 100mm lenses. Maybe these will be added at some point to the Nano Primes too. Now the build quality is of course exceptional, as you might expect from ZEISS. The weight is comparatively light, but similar to most compact primes. But none of the 6 focal lengths of the Nano Primes is especially heavy. Focus and aperture barrel movements are smooth and the resistance feels just right. With the CP2s it was a little bit too strong at times, something which ZEISS definitely fixed with the CP3s, and with the Nano Primes it's just as smooth as on the CP3s. Focus rotation is 280 degrees from macro to infinity and 90 degrees for iris on all of the lenses. Now let's quickly talk about mounts again. At the time of their launch and also when this video is being shot, the ZEISS Nano Primes are only available with E-mount. What's great is while these lenses are of course fully manual lenses, the lenses still transfer lots of data back to the camera. Not only aperture data and focus distance, but also additional lens data for distortion and vignetting is available through the ZEISS Cinecraft ecosystem for post-production purposes. That means there will be no separate XD versions of these lenses like with the CP3 lenses. They are perfect for VFX acquisition from the get-go. While the Nano Primes are only E-mount right now, the mount is user interchangeable, and ZEISS already announced that there will be other mirrorless mounts available in the near future. Which ones exactly they haven't announced yet, but here's hoping it's going to be L mount, RF mount and Z mount, all of which weren't available for the compact primes to my knowledge. Now of course we took off the E-mount to check how easy it is to swap the mounts once other mount options will be available, and we were pleasantly surprised. It's only 4 screws. There were a lot more on compact primes, and ZEISS uses pogo pins for the electronic connection. There is no fiddling with cables or anything like that, so this should be really safe for an owner-operator to do, even if they're not trained lens technicians. Of course, the lens mounts can be shimmed once that will be needed for upcoming mounts to correct the back focus. Now, let's talk about the one obvious drawback of the Nano Primes compared to the compact primes: the inability to adapt these lenses to PL, EF or any other longer-range mounts. I have to admit, when I first heard that this wasn't possible, I was surprised. But after hearing the advantages of this, faster T-stops, more consistency across the line, smaller lenses and electronic connections, I quickly understood why this makes so much sense. And think about it, even higher-end cameras like the Sony Venice 2 or Burano by now have an E-mount. Red cameras feature an RF mount. Maybe it's just a matter of time until we have native mirrorless mounts on all high-end cameras with no need for a PL anymore. The big downside, of course, is that you cannot use adapters with mirrorless mounts because of their short flange distance. So the mount on the lens really needs to be natively fitting to the camera mount, but I guess we can't have it all, right? So if you're in the market for a set of consistently looking, tech-sharp, modern cinema primes with a pleasing bokeh, and if you're predominantly shooting on Sony Burano, Venice or Venice 2, FX9, FX6 or even FX3, look no further. The ZEISS Nano Primes are perfectly optimized for these cameras. And in the near future, they'll also work on other cameras with mirrorless mounts. The Nano Primes start shipping in May, and the set of 6 lenses will set you back $26,000 or 23,000 euros. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to CineD for a lot more reviews like this one, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.